Welcome to Clip Studio Paint 101, the animation lesson. Today, we'll be talking about how Clip Studio Paint handles animation. Although CSP isn't an animation suite, it is capable of some pretty cool things when it comes to making drawings move. One of the first things you should know is that CSP Pro and EX actually differ when it comes to animation. Pro, the version I currently have, can only handle 24 frames of animation. EX does not have that limitation. You could, in theory, string multiple 24-frame animations together in a separate program, but if you tend to get heavily into animation, I suggest looking into the EX version. All our examples today were made on CSP Pro, so all of them are 24 frames or less. Let's set up our workspace first off. Go to Window at the top here. And then click on Timeline. Here we are. You can toggle it on and off from that menu. You should see it at the bottom of your screen now, but if you previously docked it somewhere else, it will appear there. You can set up your whole workspace just for animation and save it so when you come back to you can come back to it anytime you want to animate. Once you've got it set up the way you like, go to Window and Workspace and Register Workspace. You can import it from the same menu right here. Workspace Import Settings. To start an animation, go to New, either from the button right here or in the File menu. It didn't. It's supposed to. I should show it. I see it in mine. I see it on... Oh, it doesn't show the menu after that? Well, I can't fix that. I'm sorry. Just trust me that the words that I said are the correct things to click on. Alright, let's grab a new thing. I'm gonna go to animation right here. First one is illustration, webtoon, comic, show all comic settings, and the last one is animation. I currently have mine set to 500 by 500. Blank space is like your basic camera, so you can I say like 5, that'll put a 5 pixel padding all around it, and you can have like TV safe lines on your animation, but we're just gonna do 500 by 500. Boop. We'll talk more about the camera later. Now that we're ready to start, I should explain what a frame is. A frame in animation and film is one picture in a set of pictures that, when viewed in order and quickly enough, impart motion. When it comes to animation, one frame is one drawing, give or take other elements in the scene. A frame of animation can last as little as 1/24 of a second or as much as 1 whole second. The longer each frame is on screen, the longer your animation will take to play out, but it will also look less smooth and more jerky. The faster your animation plays out, the smoother you can make it, but it will take many more drawings to get to your goal. I change timing per animation. You can decide timing at the start, or you can change it after by going to animation at the top, timeline, and then change frame rate, which is or from the bottom, because I know you can't see that. You can just change your frame rate from here. If you're just testing things out, I suggest 12 to 15 frames per second. This won't be super smooth, but it's good for many applications, including GIFs. Let's look at the timeline down here at the bottom. It's a very important part of animating in CSP. Here are the buttons in order. First one is the graph editor for editing keyframe motion. Next is timeline edit, new timeline, which creates a new timeline. This is useful if you're working with several clips at the same time. Zoom in and zoom out, which makes each frame take up more or less of the timeline. The timeline UI. You may have seen this if you worked with video editing software. Next up are the navigation buttons. The first one brings you to the start of your animation. The second one goes back one frame, which is one frame earlier in time and one frame left on your timeline. Play and stop plays your animation. If you press the same button, it'll pause it. The one after that is go to next frame, which takes you to the frame right after the one that you're at. Which is like one frame later in time. And go to end takes you to the very end of your animation. This is loop. I recommend leaving this on so that you can check your work. It's easier to catch things when you see it over and over again. Next are these little squares. These are very useful. You'll probably be using these a lot. This is new animation folder, new animation cell, specify cells, delete specified cells. Enable onion skin is next. And then after that are the keyframe buttons. First is add keyframe, then keyframe interpolation, delete keyframe, enable keyframes on this layer, and edit layers within active keyframes. Enable keyframes on this layer should be the first button in this set, but c'est la vie. This isn't all for the timeline, but let's take our attention to the layer menu. If you started your file by choosing animation, you'll see some things are automatically added for you. You see on mine, there's an animation folder right here. With one raster layer in it, named 1, and a paper layer. I'll show you more complex animation folders later, but just know that you can use vector or even put whole folders inside your animation folder to act as cells. Now we're just going to stick with the raster layer. Keep your layers named 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll automatically rename them as you go when you hit the new cell thing. So let's draw something in here. Oop. Let's just draw a square. Sort of a square. Okay, now that we have a doodle here, let's click the new animation cell button. So if we do that, boop, we added it at the wrong frame. There we go. Okay, so now you should see you have a layer named 2. It automatically names them in order. Okay, so we're on the new layer, and we're also on the second frame in the timeline. You cannot affect layers that are not currently active on the timeline, even if you choose that layer in the layer menu. It's faster and more efficient to choose the cell from the timeline than it is to choose the layer in the layer menu. Thankfully, we're already on frame 2. If it's not on already, turn on onion skin. Now you can see your previous frame. This is how animators have worked for 100 years, but now the lightbox is simulated with the program. It's called onion skin because paper used to be the paper used to animate back in the day was very thin, like the skin of an onion. Onion skins let you see your previous and next drawing. Let's continue our animation by drawing something in this frame and the next frame. Let's draw our little box. Moving. I'm just gonna hit new animation cell. Now we're on 3. Papers with layers like ogres, yep. You'll see I can only see the onion skin for the previous frame, but if you want to change that, which I often do depending upon what I'm working on, we're going to go up to the animation menu. Show animation cells, and then the third one is called onion skin settings. Bring that up, and you can see how many frames you can see. So let's change this to like 3. Next frame to 3. You can change your colors here if you would like to. Suggest if you're doing sketching to leave it at monochrome, but if you're doing flats or shading, change it to color and half color. So now I can see all 3 frames that I've done. If you're familiar with animating either traditionally or in a different program, you might be wondering about keyframes and in-betweens. You can still do that here. Let's make a cell that should be later in time at frame 6. Be here. And we're just gonna hit new animation cell. So let's say that we want a little box to be over here. Apparently stretched out. What a good box. Now, in-betweens are the frame that go in between those 2 frames. The Adventures of Wigglebox. So we have 4 and 5. So we're just gonna pick one of those. We're gonna go with 5. And we're gonna draw a frame that would go in between, so you can see the blue ones. Let's grab a new animation cell. You can see this one's called 3A because it's after the third. It's named after the previous cell with a letter attached to it because cell 4 already exists. This is how it names in betweens. So we can see in between these 3 frames and this frame should probably be like here-ish. Yes. That is correct. So numbers are keyframes and letters are tweens, are in-betweens. Tweening can mean something a little different in digital. So we'll... I forgot to make a new thing, so let's make a new cell. Boop. Alright. So in between this one and that one should be this one. Yeah. It's not gonna be the best animation, but let's play it. You can see our box just goes zoom across the thing. Let's slow that down. As soon as my brain works. I'm good at this. No, I'm not. Ah, here it is. Change frame rate. We're gonna change the frame rate down to like 8, just so you can see it super clearly. There goes our wiggly box. So that's the basics of animation in Clip Studio. We have made an entire wiggle box. In-betweens are named after the preceding, so. This one is just named layer 1 for some reason. Interesting choice. 3B. You like the part where it wiggles? There you go. It'll wiggle. Just so you know, if you have it on play, you can't do a lot. You can like zoom in and out, but you can't like save or anything while it's on playing, so make sure you hit pause when you're done previewing your animations. Adding in-betweens can make your animation smoother or slower. You can add bounce, squash, stretch, or overshoot to give your animation a little professional flair with in-betweens as normal. Let's look at one of our examples. So, stop this. We don't need wiggle box anymore. We're gonna open up an eyeball. This is the eyeball emote for my channel. It's a pretty simple animation. Let's hit play so you can see it go. Boop. As you can see, the eye blinks and moves and vanishes before reappearing and doing it all over again. Let's pause and look at the different parts of this animation. Boop. If I turn off the other 2 layers, you can see that the first folder is the eye outline. You can see it blink and come in and out of existence, I suppose. I have 3 folders. So the top folder is the line work for the eye, like I said. The second folder right here is the iris and the pupil. And then the third folder is the colors. I started this animation with just the outline for the eye. The lines are in vector, which is a personal preference, but because I knew they were going to be manipulated frame by frame without the corners of the eye moving, vector was the easiest choice for me. The eye is literally just 2 curves I pulled and pushed each frame with the operation object tool. If we turn off the other folders, you can see the outline move on its own. Did that, but do it again. Yeah. So the iris and the pupil are just the circle tool, except for frame 19. Frame 19 is just a smear frame that I did, right there. This is an animation technique to show faster movement than what you're animating at, but all the other frames are just duplicated and moved. I could have keyframed this, but we'll get into that later. This was only my second animation. You'll see on some of the frames there's a blue around them that doesn't show up in the preview. That's a clipping mask. I used it to block out other things that fell outside the eye line mark. Lastly, I did the colors. Let's turn on the color folder. This animation is only flatted and not shaded. It's a little emote, so detail wasn't needed. I flatted each frame the same way I flat my illustration work, and then I used masking again to make sure nothing fell outside of the eye line work. This is a pretty simple animation. It shows what you can do with the program pretty clearly. Want to see more eyeballs? I've got more eyeballs. Let's hope this doesn't crash the whole system. Oop. Okay. You may recognize this as my stinger transition animation. I made this as well, if you didn't know. The green flash is absent in this version, but it is the same aside from that. This took much longer than the previous emote for obvious reasons, but it's done in much the same way. I started with the eye outlines, then did the pupils and iris outlines, then the colors. This took forever. Part of that is because this was my very first digital animation, but also it has a lot of moving parts and many details. When I play it, you can see the blue borders moving around the canvas. Those blue borders are the 2D camera borders. The full animation slides in and out from the top, or slides in from the top and slides out at the bottom. The second 2D camera is for the green flash, but we're not looking at that today. Just know that you can use more than one camera and you can make them separate. The green flash doesn't go up or down, and the eyeballs do not go in and out. Let's turn on the 2D camera in preview. Alright, so we gotta pause this to do this. So we're gonna go up to animation, playback setting, and then render 2D camera. It's a toggle, so when it's checked, that means it's active. Now when I press play, you should see the pan. It's gonna chug because this file is a beast. But you get the idea. It does the thing. Okay, let's pause that before it crashes the system. I really didn't know what I was doing, so I made this animation huge. Unnecessarily huge. So it's a little it's a big boy. It's a big boy. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about how to add a camera real quick. You want to go to animation, new animation layer, and then in here is animation folder, 2D camera folder, and audio. You want to add a 2D camera folder. When you first do that, nothing is gonna happen because nothing is in the camera folder. Okay, so let me grab the camera folder wherever that is. It's up here. All right. So this is just the camera folder here. There are no cells or frames in this folder, but you can see little blue diamonds. Those are keyframes. If you've used Flash or maybe some video editing software in the past, you probably already understand keyframes. These aren't the same as traditional animation keyframes like we talked about previously. These are for motion interpolation. First thing you would do is make sure keyframes are on for this layer. That's this button, this button right here. Remember those buttons from the start of class? We're gonna use them now. Each of these diamonds are a keyframe. I started off by adding a keyframe at frame 8, it's right here, and one after frame 15. Because I knew that I wanted the eyeballs to be centered, and that's where the camera was set originally. So it was easier just to make those keyframes immediately. Then I went back to the very beginning of the animation, and I dragged the camera directly down and created a new keyframe. At the very end of the animation, I dragged the camera directly up until it was off screen. You can see the blue boxes up there. And then I made a new keyframe. So when it plays, the camera scrolls from the bottom to the top, making the eyeballs look like they're coming down. Let me grab a drink. My voice. So, adding the keyframe tells CSP that the camera should start below the animation and end above the animation. So, because it's keyframe and interpolated, CSP does the motion between keyframes for me. I did not have to frame by frame animate the camera pan. Interpolation between keyframes is important. Most of the time you will want smooth interpolation. But there are two others. That's right here, this little drop down. Create keyframe hold interpolation. Create keyframe linear interpolation. Create keyframe smooth interpolation. Smooth interpolation eases the animation in and out. Linear interpolation moves your animation, drawing, or camera at the exact same speed the whole time. This can look very janky and robotic. If you're puppet animating a robot, this might be what you're looking for though. The hold interpolation will just keep it on the first keyframe until you hit the next keyframe, and it will jump to that next keyframe with no motion at all. We're going to look at the graph editor next. This only works with keyframes active. Boop. This is kind of a lot to take in. So you can see each of the colors means something. So V is the Y position, and you can see it's the only one that moves because the camera moves up and down. X is left and right, and then you can have scale, which zooms in and out, rotate, and then you can move the center of your rotation per keyframe too. So you can actually change where you want the center of rotation to be as the animation goes, which is crazy, and I don't know what you would use it for, but it is there. So you can see like the camera starts here, and it moves to the very center and pauses and then goes here. This is the negative Y, and this is positive Y. So it starts above the animation and ends below it. If you look very closely, you can see these little handles, and you can drag these around to change how the animation moves. So you can make it bounce, or you can make it smoother or sharper. And you can do that with all of them. Just know that when you do it, it changes both sides. Both sides of your line. So the more gentle you make the curve, the slower the action is, and the more sharp you make it, the faster it is. That's as much as I really want to get into the graph editor for this class. This is a basics class, so we're gonna stop playing around in there. There's also sound in this animation, which you have probably heard 1,000 times. Which is the bubbles gurgling. Looks okay. Sorry, this animation is ginormous, so the bubbles are here. So I edited this sound on a different in a like sound editing software because Clip Studio is not meant for that, and then I added it so you can this will only show up if you export as a movie. A GIF doesn't have sound. I added the sound clip in an audio program to make it the correct length, and then just imported it. Go up to animation, new animation layer, and then audio. Then you can go to file, import, And then there's audio in this too. It is 1, 2, 3, 4 from the bottom. All right, let's close this monster. Do not save. Thank you. Goodbye. All right. The next one we're going to look at has a little bit more complex cell setup. This is my dance emote. Boop. This is shorter than the other ones at only 12 frames, but it gets the job done. On the timeline, you can see the two little hands at the top in their own folder. You can see Zeus's head and body are animated, or you can see Zeus in the second folder, and then I have two reference folders at the bottom. So this one and this one. Zeus's head and body are animated at a different pace than the hands. You can see that they're animated on twos. That means they take up 1-2 cells, or 1-2 frames per cell. So there are only 6 cells of him actually turning. 1, 2. Oops. It would help if I started at the beginning. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's all of them. Zeus's hands are animated on ones. They move every frame. That's what it means to be animated on ones. I know turnarounds are difficult, and I have a built-in rig, so I made a reference of Zeus and his hands before starting the animation. That's what these are for, down here. If I turn that on and play it, you can see Zeus turns around for me. And then his little hands are here. I only used one picture of his little hands. I didn't need more. But if I put his animated hands with this, they'll go at the same time. So if you, so this means that if you are using reference, are doing rotoscoping, or have a few sketch layers, you don't really need to delete them. You can just turn their visibility on and off. And you can keep them in your file for reference in case you ever need to revisit your animation. Now that I've shown you that, let's look at the makeup of each cell in the Zeus folder. We're in the Zeus folder over here. And here is cell 6. We have a base sketch, a hair sketch, flats, black, flats, white, flats, jewelry, flats, clothing, clothing shade, flats, hair, hair shade, flat skin, skin shade, flats eyes, eyes shade, lines and highlights. You can see I have several sketch layers, all my flats separated, all my shading separated, and of course the line work and details that might need to go on top of the line work. It turns out I didn't need some of these, but I was better off having them and not needing them than not having them and needing to add a layer and rename 12 times in a row. I don't super recommend having your sketches in these folders. I'd say have an animation folder with just your sketch so it's easier to turn on and off, but this worked at the time. Okay, our last animation is going to be the zap animation, which is the one I just finished earlier this week. This is not the correct one. Hang on. Zappy 5. 5 is the correct one. Go back to the beginning. Okay. This is the zap animation. This has two separate parts, the hand and the electric magic. You can see the camera follows the magic bolt across the screen, so I only animated the parts that were in those borders. This means I did the camera pretty early on. This animation is also another 24 frames because I cannot be stopped, apparently. I did an animation technique called straight ahead animation, where there is no designated start or end point, no traditional keyframes or added in-betweens. You just animate straight ahead, one frame at a time. This was also my first FX animation, so that was fun. The animation has lighting and shading, so there are several extra layers. I needed to make each cell a folder again. At the top of the timeline, you can see the camera and its keyframes. The first animation folder, it's right here, called spell folder. It's for the lightning. Each folder has the base of a lightning in like each cell of the cell folder has the lightning and the shading in it. Hey Ghost, welcome in. Turn that back on before I forget. I need to make, yeah, okay, so. Oh yeah, and the shading is all on a clipping layer. That's why there's this red line here. Next is the hand folder. It's called hand final because I had a sketch layer for the hand. Boop. And you can see each of these is a folder as well, but there's only 5 of them because the hand only appears for 5 frames. Let's look at just the hand. And then there's the hand sketch in this folder. Hands on with the handsy hand animation. Ow! What'd I do? Yeah, it's called hand final because I grew a brain between the last animation and this one, so the hand sketches are in a separate folder, like a smart person. Just to let you know, you can do puppet animation in Clip Studio Paint, but I don't have any examples currently. You'd have to draw each piece that moves and then keyframe them like the camera by creating keyframes and letting CSP interpolate the motion. I have not done this yet, but it is possible. That's the end of the lesson and of CSP 101. The series is over. I taught you everything I wanted to and I thought I could help with. Thank you so much for coming out. Please let me know if you have any questions. Yeah, we're done. Done, you guys. I did it. Thank you guys for coming out. I super appreciate it. I worked really, really, really hard on this one. I did so much animation. I spent a lot of time thinking about the script, and then I spent over 4 hours writing the script. But yeah, I really hope that this was worth the 3-week wait. I'm so sorry about that, but we did it, and this is the last Clip Studio 101. So if you have any questions about animation, let me know. I will try my best to answer. I did that in 40 minutes? Jesus Christ. Will do. Oop. Finish the wiggle box animation. What do you want the wiggle box to do? Wiggle? Okay. Well, we've got 2 more frames to make it wiggle. I mean, I could add more frames, but I've done so much animating. You know what we could do? I could make it play backwards after this, because it's only 8 frames, so yeah. Slow it way down. If I were actually paying attention, we would ease this to a stop. We're not. We're not paying attention today. Alright. To make your animation longer, grab this little corner box right here. It's really hard to see. It's hard for me to see too, so I assume it's really hard for you guys to see. Just drag it out. You can drag out the paper as well. And then just going to grab the blue, drag that out. And then instead of drawing new things, we're just gonna go here. We're gonna assign a cell. So let's specify cells here. And we want 4. Just hit OK. You can also make sure you're on the right frame, right click, go, and just pick it that way. Just make our animation slightly shorter there. There you go. Wiggle loop. You want to add a camera? Let's add a camera. We got time. Animation layer, add 2D camera. Perfect emote. You know what, Graham? I will gladly give you the emote if you want it. So we're gonna let's like zoom in and out and rotate maybe. So let's add add a keyframe. You're still on smooth, right? Yep, sure am. I'm gonna add a keyframe at the very back. And then to manipulate it, you need to go to Operation and Object, and then you can just move it in and out, like you would normally. I'm gonna make myself motion sick is what's gonna happen. Oh, the other thing you can do is you can copy this keyframe and paste it. Add a new keyframe. Wiggle box. It's beautiful. I can totally do that by just hiding the paper layer. You want the box to be thinged? Alright. We will do that. So you can do this in a separate layer, which is what I usually do, but this is a very simple little box, so we're just gonna fix our lines here. Get this out. There we go. Wiggle box rides again. Do every other frame white? Are you sure? Alright. Whatever you want. Do you want the whole box to be white? We're gonna give someone seizures. Just the inside? Alright. Oops. That looks crappy. Oops. Oh! Yes, I fuck up. Why though? I didn't mean to do that. I missed. We kind of don't need the last frame, so... Yeah. Oh, that is the fucking worst. Right. Oh, I see. Do you, like, legitimately want this? I feel like, Okay, I'll just send you the file then. Send you the file. And you can do whatever the fuck you want to it. But yeah, thank you for coming out. Thanks for making me do another silly demo, because I think we covered a lot of ground in that little silly demo. But yeah, that's it. We did it. Clip Studio 101 is